note, I'm a registered nutritionist and herbalist and naturopath. And I try as much as possible in everything I do to work off evidence-based medicine. Now that can be twofold in that, particularly with herbal medicine, we have a basis of both traditional medicine and scientific research, because there's so many herbs. There's not enough research done. But the traditional use of herbs as medicine is recognized by the European Commission and protected within the European Commission statute. So it's not just me deciding that it's useful. I want to talk to you about a particular type of classification of herbs that is applicable for ME and are specific for ME, that some of you may have tried yourselves. And then just talk about a couple of other things as well. So it's just a very general, quick run through, because as you know yourselves, ME is a complex disease and treatment of it is complex. So naturopathic medicine, I really like this definition. And I like it for a number of reasons. As you can see there, it says naturopathic medicine blends modern scientific knowledge with traditional and natural forms of medicine. So it is a blend. And as I mentioned, the EU recognizes that blend. And it's that blend. What amazes me, as I look at research coming out, is how often the research just confirms what was a traditional use. And you wonder, how did people in the past work it out? How did they know that such and such a plant was good for something? It really intrigues me. And then naturopathy is also based on the healing power of nature and supports and stimulates the body's ability to heal itself. So the body has an ability to heal itself, maybe not quickly, but if you think of things like a broken bone, the flu, a cut, all of these things, the body can heal itself. But sometimes it needs supports. Sometimes it needs a bit of help, and that may not necessarily be from outside. Sometimes that help is from other parts of the body. For example, even just getting sleep can help with healing. So in essence, that's what naturopathy is. In many other countries, it's recognized much more than in Ireland. So in America, depending on the state, sometimes they're actually qualified doctors who then go into naturopathic medicine. Sometimes they're practitioners like myself. Here it's practitioners. Australia, naturopathic medicine is very strong. And it has a nice blend. And the reason it's nice is it's holistic. And I know holistic is a bit of a kind of a buzzword, but really in this sense, it means whole. We look at the whole body and we look at what is happening in the body. So for example, on the first consultation, it takes an hour and a quarter. I ask a lot of questions, and that's because I'm trying to get a picture of what is happening in the body and how different parts of the body link. I'm always struck that when we study, say, science, or we study biomedicine or something like that, we're always taught parts of the body separately. You're taught about the liver and you're taught about the heart, but they actually all connect. And it's really important to understand that they all connect. We try and treat the cause, not the symptom. So a simple example for that would be, let's say you had a rash and you went to your doctor. The doctor would probably give you a cream for the rash. Whereas if you come to a naturopath, we try and find out what's causing the rash. And in naturopathic terms, frequently, as the skin is one of your detoxification organs. So if there's a rash, there's something maybe not working at a detoxification level, usually possibly the liver. And so that's where we actually start. We would treat a rash from a liver point of view. The third point I want to make is that naturopaths and the client have equal roles. So this isn't a paternalistic relationship in terms of the consultation. It's not about me saying, here's what you do, and giving you a list and you go off, and it may not suit you. It may not fit with you as a person. It's about working together on the problem. And equally, it's also important, the naturopath really relies on the person's feedback, because you're the person who understands your body more than what's happening in your body, more than anyone. And so it's that feedback and that interaction between the naturopath and the client that brings about hopefully some of the healing. We're also complementary, so we're not alternative, and we frequently work with doctors and work with blood tests and so on. So it's very much complementary. It's not an either or situation. And I just thought I would finish with this, which is from Hippocrates, who's the father of medicine. And his belief was all disease starts in the gut. And I remember when I was studying nutrition, my supervisor, when I sent up an assignment or something like that, if I didn't address the gut, she would mark me down. So the gut is so important. And the more we learn about the gut and the gut microbiome, the more we understand that. And I suppose within the gut, I'm also talking about the liver and how the liver works. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So as I said, in terms of yourselves and your own particular condition, there is no quick fix. And with, naturopaths tend to see people with chronic conditions. If somebody has an acute condition like a cold or something like that, they go first to a doctor. So we tend to see people with chronic conditions who maybe haven't had much success through the medical system. We also see people who just don't want to go through the medical system, or we've people, say, in terms of anxiety and things like that, people who maybe want to try a natural option first before they might go into a pharmaceutical route. And for some people that is if they choose to go down, for some people that is maybe the right thing for them. I don't ever dissuade people, because as I said, I do believe that people know their own body. But there is no quick fix with chronic illnesses, and it's a bit like peeling an onion. You address one thing, something else, so you're slowly trying to rectify. And I remember years ago, a physio saying to me when I went to her with an injury, and she said to me, the length of time that you have the injury is the length of time it will take to fix it. And it's a bit like that with chronic illnesses too, not to depress you, but it's not a quick fix. And if anyone tells you there's a quick fix, and I'm sure you all know that as well. And for yourselves, there is a balance between energy versus depletion, in that some of the herbs that I'm going to talk about today are herbs that help provide energy, but that has to be managed, and there's one particular herb I haven't included today deliberately because it can give a false energy, which then aggravates the depletion. So there is a balance as well to be watched in terms of the treatment. But in terms of a formula, typically a formula will contain 7 herbs. We don't tend to use what are called simples, which is a herb on its own or a plant on its own. And the reason is because within a formula, we get a synergistic action with the different plants working together. And plant actions we pick then depend on the person's symptoms. So treating plants like medicine doesn't work. So, you'll often say, a typical example for me is people who try, for example, valerian, which is the common one for sleep. And people will say, oh, I tried valerian, it didn't work for me. It probably didn't, because the herb has to be matched to the person. It has to be matched to the condition, and it has to be matched to the symptom. Another herb, for example, is, you've all heard of it, St. John's wort for depression. It doesn't work for some people. I've taken it. It does very little for me. And yet I've seen other people and they're flying on it. St. John's wort is very much linked to a digestive component of depression. So you need to match the herb to the person and the condition. And that's really important, and the second thing is just taking it. Herbs work slowly, because they're balancing the body. So, you don't want the body just flung from one extreme of to another. It's very slowly balanced. And we're going to talk now in a second about a herb called ashwagandha. But to give you an example, when I take that, and I go running, and I'm taking it for a week or two, and suddenly I think, oh my God, I've got so fit. I'm fantastic. And then when I stopped the ashwagandha, I realized it was actually the herb. So they work at a very subtle level. And so treating them as medicine where, like Nurofen, where you take a Nurofen because you have a headache. And so you take a herb for a day and then you say it doesn't work. That's not how herbs work. They very gradually balance the body. So they're in keeping with the body. And finally, as I said, they're individualized. So every formula is individualized for the person. I just put this up. I mean, you know this better than I, all of you, in terms of different symptoms of ME. And I'm sure I haven't got them all here and haven't got all of your individual symptoms here. But the reason I put it up was just to show the complexity of problems and therefore the complexity of herbal actions that might be required. So if somebody presents with, say, pain and sleep, I will go one way. Whereas if somebody presents with allergies and dizziness, I'll go another way. So there's a complexity within your conditions, and there's also complexity within the treatment. And some of the actions that we'd look at would be, these are some of the herbal categories. So things called nervines. So nervines tend to work on anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, all of those kind of things. Antiviral, antimicrobial, obviously there is there's an immune issue here. Immunomodulators, and I'll talk a bit more about them because I love the immunomodulators. And immunomodulators will be used where there has been an infection, but they'll also be used where there's autoimmune as a result of the infection. So that covers autoimmune. Hormone balancing, gastrointestinal herbs. We have pain reducing and analgesics. And, some of you may know, one of the big analgesic herbs that we would use is called Salix alba, which is white willow. That actually that's the genesis of aspirin. Now, I'm sure aspirin is made synthetically now, but initially aspirin was made from white willow. So we have a couple of herbs that are, have that salicylic acid essentially in it. And the last category, which is the category I wanted to talk about today, are adaptogens. And adaptogens they're unique. Why I picked to talk about them today is they're unique. I don't think there's a comparison in the pharmaceutical world. So, nervines, yes, you can get your anxiolytics, you can get your Prozac and so on, antivirals, immunomodulators, but adaptogens, there isn't quite a comparison in the pharmaceutical world. So what are they? They're what we call they have non-specific effects on the body. So to qualify as an adaptogen, it has to have an effect on the body, but non-specific. That might sound weird, but I'll explain. They normalize the body. That's what they do. So a good example is, let's say there was somebody who had low thyroid. Taking an adaptogen, and particularly ashwagandha in this case, will help to normalize the thyroid function. Another person standing beside them who has high thyroid, hyperthyroid, taking ashwagandha will normalize their thyroid function. So they're what we call amphoteric. They work both ways, and they normalize the body. They have very few side effects, or practically none, and they're non-toxic. So this is ashwagandha. Withania is the Latin name. We normally go by the Latin name because of the different species, but ashwagandha is the common name. It is an adaptogen. And as you can see, the bottom, I probably should have moved that bullet point up to the top, but it is ME specific. And in this case, it works on autoimmune conditions, muscle weakness and debility, brain fog, and fibromyalgia. And a study on ashwagandha found that a randomized controlled study found that it reduced anxiety, fatigue, blood pressure, and stress with the participants. Ashwagandha means mane of a horse, and I really like it. I use it, as I said myself. This is the one where I feel I've got so fit when I use it. What I like about it is there is another adaptogen, which I'm not covering today deliberately, which is Siberian ginseng. Siberian ginseng can be very stimulating, and that's the one that can deplete you. Ashwagandha doesn't deplete in that way. It doesn't cause that overstimulation. It is said to be, some people say it's a male herb. I haven't any experience of that. I use it very widely for clients and for myself, and I just find it fantastic. One of the things I forgot to mention when I was talking about herbs is one of the ways we balance herbs too is on heat. So herbs are warm or cold, and we balance the formula within that. So, we don't want to give you a formula that's all hot. Ashwagandha is actually a heating herb. This second one, again, it's another one I love. It's called asparagus racemosus. It's not the asparagus that you eat. The asparagus that you eat is more of a diuretic. This one is, both ashwagandha and this one, they're both Indian herbs, so they're used in Ayurvedic medicine. Shatavari means 100 spouses. So this one is seen as a female adaptogen. It's said to be very rejuvenating for women and very good for reproduction. You can see there it has a phytoestrogenic component to it. Again, it's for debility and convalescence. But here's the difference with this one. This one now is looking more at gastritis, diarrhea, and inflammatory gut. So you can see this, whereas ashwagandha's focus was maybe more on the head and on strength, this one has a bit of a gut focus. What I love about Shatavari is particularly as we age, we all dry out, sad to say. We're like the aging leaves in autumn. And Shatavari, maybe that's the kind of rejuvenating part of it. Shatavari moistens us. So that's why it's a nice one as well. It's not a dry, again, balancing the herbs, it's not a drying herb. Again, look at this one. Look at the berries on this one. This is Schizandra, and I don't think there's any English name to it. I think it's just Schizandra. Another adaptogen, another one specific for ME, fatigue, night sweats, stress, anxiety, and mitochondrial dysfunction. And we'll come back to the mitochondria later. But the big area I would use it for, we spoke about liver at the very start. Liver detoxification. The liver, we have 5 detoxification organs in our body, but the liver is the biggest one. And the liver detoxifies everything from pesticides to plastics to environmental toxins, but also what we call endotoxins. So toxins that are in our body, like hormones, excess cholesterol. The liver detoxifies all of those. So you want a good liver detoxification. Viruses will obviously impact on that. And Schizandra is a great one for working on the liver. So you can see even from those 3 herbs, we had ashwagandha more at the head. We had Shatavari more in the stomach and on the skin in terms of dryness. And now we have Schizandra working at the liver, at the mitochondrial dysfunction. So you can see how different adaptogens do different things. The last thing that Schizandra does, and you can guess it from the berries, is it really helps with blood sugar imbalances and helps with, there's studies where it has helped with, it's anti-diabetic. And so that again is another one to add to the cart in terms of a treatment profile. Rhodiola. Again, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Machu Picchu or any of these places, but rhodiola first got its reputation for helping people at altitude because it increases the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So again, as you can imagine, if it does that, then it helps with fatigue and exhaustion because it helps with oxygen. And will help then the brain in terms of memory and concentration, good for depression, insomnia, burnout, and again, as we can see, specific for ME. And this last one, I really like this one because this one is kind of a little bit of a renegade in that It is an adaptogen. It doesn't necessarily give you the burst of energy that that other adaptogens give. But where it is specific is where autoimmunity has resulted because of a virus. So it's specific for viruses, and specific, as you can see, for ME and chronic fatigue. It works on the kidneys, and it also works in the gut. And this was actually, when COVID first started, this was one of the herbs that was there as part of the COVID treatment protocol because of its viral action or antiviral action. I've put this herb in. Now, this one isn't an adaptogen, and I have put it in. I love it as a herb, but I've also put it in because it has a really interesting action. And, typically, because adaptogens, as I mentioned at the start, we have 7 herbs in a formula. Because adaptogens work so well in terms of energy, we wouldn't put 7 adaptogens together for you. So we would use other herbs depending on the person's condition and depending on, have you pain, we'd put in analgesics. Have you digestive upset, we'd put in the herbs for them. But what I really like about wood betony is it works on the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is just below your sternum, and it is the conductor of nerve impulses down into the gut. So it's responsible for the gallbladder, it's responsible for the liver, it's responsible for peristalsis, which is part of your elimination and your liver protocol. So it works on the liver and the gallbladder. But because it works on the solar plexus and the nerve conduction, it also works up. So the solar plexus connects both the brain and the stomach. And so by working upwards, it helps with headaches, migraines, tension, anxiety. So technically it's not an adaptogen, but it has a range of actions which are, again, really useful. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful herb. So that's just a very quick run through, because I could drown you. Typically in our pharmacopoeia, we would have 100 herbs. So I'm not going to go through 100 herbs, you'd go blind. But I just wanted to do a quick run through because I just wanted to show you the powerful action that adaptogens have. They are unique. As I said, they have non-specific actions, but they help to normalize the body. They're not quick, as I said, they take time. And how we pick them and how we use them depends on the person's symptoms. And then we combine them with other relevant herbs. But it's not just about botanicals. I love this one, by the way. This is nothing. This is a herb called passion flower. Named not for passion, but seemingly because it looks a little bit like the crown of thorns that Jesus had. So that's where it comes from, the name. Very, very good herb for sleep and insomnia. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the mitochondria. Now, I'm sure all of you, given your condition, have all heard about the mitochondria and the importance of the mitochondria. Essential for energy and the powerhouse of the cell. Essential to convert energy. The problem with the mitochondria is they mutate even more than DNA, 10 times more than DNA. So they change more, and unfortunately their ability to repair themselves is less. So they don't have a great ability to repair. And so they are very prone to damage by aging anyway, unfortunately. That's why one reason why our energy wanes as we age. But secondly, disease. So it's not just in terms of ME. There's a very, I saw a presentation about a leading heart surgeon in the US. He prescribes ubiquinol, in this case, to all of his patients just once they have any kind of heart issues, because the mitochondria are most prevalent in the brain, heart, liver, and kidney. Because why is that? Because they are some of the biggest energy users in the body. I mean, your brain uses a huge amount of energy. Your liver, as I said, is the major detoxification organ. Kidney detoxifies, and then the heart keeps us alive. So most mitochondria are found in those areas, but obviously they're all around the body. And the mitochondria use CoQ10 or convert ubiquinone to ubiquinol and then back. So there is this debate about ubiquinol and ubiquinone and which one should I take. The advice really is ubiquinol with an L. And the reason is you take ubiquinone in the body. It does, the body converts it to ubiquinol, and then actually it's a complete circle, so converts ubiquinol back to ubiquinone. But the problem is when you have a disease state, that conversion doesn't work as well. So you're better off taking ubiquinol as the broken down version. The one I prefer is this one. I've tried both. One is by Pharma Nord and one is by this company. Pharma Nord has a lot of research backing their particular brand, but I can only speak from personal experience. I think this one is much better from an energy point of view. It is expensive. I think it costs around 50 euros for 30 gels. So you need to use it sparingly, but that's just my view on it. The second thing I am absolutely fanatical about is mushrooms. And I think mushrooms are, provided you don't have a mushroom intolerance, of course, mushrooms are very underrated in terms of illness in this part of the world. Mushrooms are what's called immunomodulators, which means they modulate the immune system. And part of the way they do that is they contain a component called beta-glucans, which indicates to our bodies that we have a fungus in our bodies. And that then causes the immune system to react. So there are a range of mushrooms that you can buy, but the one I would think specifically for yourselves is cordyceps. Cordyceps is an adaptogen as well, helps with energy and endurance and resistance to fatigue. I don't have it here actually. It's for viral infections, and it has fantastic neuronal function, and actually works on any kind of nerve issue, whether that's physical or mental. So it has been shown to help with anxiety, things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all of this cordyceps can help with. And then finally, just to finish up, as I said, I am a nutritionist and a herbalist. I have focused this talk more on herbs, just to give you something different. But there are other components that are critically important, and sleep, I cannot overstate how important sleep is. There's so much research coming out about sleep. When I was growing up, my father used to say an hour before, I'm sure some of you have heard this, an hour before midnight is worth 2 hours afterwards. And it's really interesting that the research is actually showing that. So what they're showing is that in the period, if you go to bed at 11 o'clock, for the next 4 hours, while you're asleep, the body does cleaning. So, for example, in the brain, during the day, waste builds up in our brain. In that 4-hour period, there's a lymph system in the brain which helps to clean some of that waste out of the brain. And then the second 4 hours, that cleaning process is finished, and it's more processing some of the thoughts of the day and so on. They have found that, so that's 8 hours, let's say you go to bed at 1 o'clock and you sleep until 9 o'clock. So you've still got your 8 hours sleep. That benefit doesn't accrue, by still getting the 8 hours, but not getting it before 11 doesn't have the same benefit. Now, I know easier said than done in a lot of cases, but that's just the science. The other research recently I was reading was they looked at people where they took the middle point. So let's say somebody went to bed at 11 and got up at 7. Their midpoint was around 3:30 in the night. By moving that back an hour, when they looked at people, say, who went to bed at midnight and slept till 8, and now their midpoint is 4, by moving that back an hour, they reduced depression by 23%. So sleep is really important. Nutrition and diet obviously is, we can get things, maybe not high amounts, but we can get things like CoQ10 from the diet. In terms of detoxification, there are certain, depending on what you can and can't eat, but there are things like the brassicas, which we broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, turnip, all of those are very important for liver detoxification. Spinach is another great one for blood and for depletion. So we generally say eat a rainbow. That's what we're looking for. The more broad your diet can be, the more nutrients you get in. Obviously, things like chlorella, spirulina, wheatgrass, fantastic for nitric oxide, which is important for blood flow and for the endothelial lining of your blood vessels, relaxation, and then green therapy. There's more and more. I was actually reading the NHS, what would they call it? A department of the NHS in the UK. They have now allowed doctors to prescribe green therapy, where people can go to a different place and just be in green because of the benefits on the mind and on the body. So, again, I say to my clients, it's not just about exercise. And actually, I should have put exercise there, but anyway, it's not just about exercise. There's a huge difference between even going for a short walk in a concrete area versus sitting in a park. Just being with green is very important. So that's just a very quick summary of kind of naturopathic approaches. So, in terms of yourselves, if any of you decided to come, the first thing obviously would be a case history, where we would look and see where your particular problems were. Not so much problem, but where your priorities are, because we start with your priorities. And as I said, it's like peeling an onion. So we start with the priorities. We look at lifestyle, we look at nutrition. There's a nutritional analysis done as part of that. And then we'd make up a herbal formula, or we'd look at, I don't tend to jump straight away into tests. A lot of people ring me and say, oh, do you do such and such a test? I can do them, and I do test with clients. But in general, the view is, because tests are very expensive. And, in some cases, you get a test to show you what maybe you already knew. So trying protocols first and trying that. And it's only, if we really get stuck, that we might go for a test.